Dummies' rights and limitations. A dummy, by definition, cannot speak. They are controlled by another force. In bridge, the dummy is there to follow the instructions of the declarer. Some dummies get far too involved in the game. They do have some rights, but they have more restrictions. People have different attitudes to being dummy. Some like to switch off and just play the cards they are told to play and don't pay much attention to what is happening or how partner is going. Some like to keep a closer eye on what is going on, especially if it is an interesting contract. Regardless of your approach to being dummy, the key thing to remember is that you are dummy. You simply do what you are told by partner, even if that play is a stupid one or if it is an infraction. Best way to remember it: dummy must not participate in the play or communicate anything about the play to declarer. So, what are you allowed to do when you are dummy? You can give information as to fact or law in the director's presence. For example, there is a query about a revoke or hesitation and the director is called. Dummy may contribute to the discussion. You can and should keep count of the tricks won and lost. Play the cards as directed by declarer and ensure that dummy follows suit. Ask the declarer, but not defenders, when they have failed to follow suit to a trick, whether they have a card of the lead suit or not. Try to prevent any irregularity. Draw attention to any irregularity after the play of the hand is concluded. On the flip side, what can you not do when you are dummy? Initiate a call for the director during play, unless another player has drawn attention to an irregularity. Call attention to an irregularity during play. Participate in play, or communicate anything about the play to declarer. Exchange hands with the declarer. Leave your seat to watch declarer's play of the hand. Look at the face of a card in either defender's hand. I think most of these are pretty straightforward. However, many players do not understand the limitations, especially around participating in play and trying to prevent an irregularity. So let's delve a bit deeper and look at a number of scenarios. Scenario: declarer has won the trick and dummy. Dummy turns it over and hits the table and or says, "You're in dummy." This is very clearly not allowed. Dummy is participating in play. If you are in the habit of doing this, stop now. If you have a partner that does this, tell them to stop now. If you are defending and dummy does this, call the director, who will tell them to stop now. If they do it again, the director should award at least a warning and, if it is persistent, a procedural penalty. Scenario: declarer has one trick in hand and now calls for a card from dummy. Dummy says, "Your hand, partner." This is very clearly not allowed. Again, dummy is participating in play, and they are also drawing attention to an irregularity before anyone else. The irregularity has already occurred, so dummy's role in this situation is to shut up and play the card. It is up to the defending team to exercise their rights, as it is a lead out of turn. Once the card has been called for, it has been played. If you are in the habit of doing this, stop now. If you have a partner that does this, tell them to stop now. Scenario: declarer wins trick and dummy and takes a card out of their hand as if to play it. Dummy says, You're in dummy, partner. This is the most contentious one and is interpreted differently by different directors. A top Australian director at a seminar I once went to was adamant that this is not allowed. But the law says dummy may try to prevent any irregularity, so technically this is allowed. However, I try to make it a point to not do it. If my partner leads from the wrong hand, the opponents don't notice, and it is advantageous to us, well then, bad luck for them. They should pay more attention. If it is bad for us, I'll politely but firmly tell my partner after the hand. However, just to make it very clear, deliberately leading from the wrong hand because that suits you is a severe violation of the laws, so never do that. Scenario. Declarer wins trick in hand, places his card as if it were a loser, and then does nothing, waiting for the opposition to lead. The opposition seems a bit confused and nothing is happening. Dummy says, "You won the trick, partner." Again, a wee bit of a grey area. Dummy is not allowed to draw attention to the fact that partner has one or more tricks pointing the wrong way during play. While it is reasonable to expect that the opposition will have realised they won the trick and lead, they may not have. So in this situation, when it is clear nobody is leading anything, dummy would be entitled to point this out as they are preventing an irregularity. In this case, slow play. Scenario. Declarer is in 4 spades. With 3 tricks to go, they have made 8 tricks. However, they have placed trick 3 the wrong way and believe they have only made 7. They are mulling how to make the last 3 tricks. Dummy says, "You got trick 3 wrong, partner. You only need 2 more." This is clearly not allowed. Dummy is communicating information about the play to the declarer. If this happens, there should be an immediate procedural penalty applied. Scenario. A declarer has the ace, queen and 10 of clubs in dummy and plays the 4 from their hand. The 4 is covered with the king and declarer calls for the queen. Dummy looks quizzically at declarer and says, "Are you sure?" or "the queen," or similar. But this is clearly not allowed. Declarer has likely made a mistake, meaning to finesse and not expecting the king to appear. Dummy is communicating information about the play to the declarer. Note that in this instance, if declarer was to call the director and say that it was unintended, whether or not dummy has said anything, the law is quite clear here that the queen is to be played. Scenario. The hand has been completed and the result stated. Dummy thinks opposition may have revoked on trick 7. They say, "I think there has been a revoke. I'd like to call the director and check it." This is allowed. Play has finished, and so they have the right to inquire about this. Scenario. The opening lead is made of the Queen of Hearts. Dummy places hand down, which includes the King and 7 of Hearts. They immediately touch the King as if to play it, or move it into the played position. This is clearly not allowed and should attract a procedural penalty, as dummy is participating in play. Scenario. The opening lead is made of the Jack of Clubs, and dummy places hand down, which includes the singleton 7 of Clubs. As they place their hand down, they put the 7 of Clubs in such a position as to indicate it has been played. But this is not allowed. Declarer must call for a card before the dummy moves it, even if it is a singleton. Declarer may wish to study dummy and plan their line of play. However, as a director, I would not penalise for this, but just gently remind dummy to not do this. The same applies for during play, if there is only 1 card left of that suit. Dummy must wait until declarer has called for it. Scenario. Declarer wins the trick in dummy and doesn't immediately designate which card they are going to play next. Dummy thinks it is pretty obvious and touches or moves the card. This is not allowed. This is a clear example of dummy participating in play. While the director may not forbid declarer to play that card, there could be an adjusted score if the director deems that there is another line of play the declarer may have taken that would still be logical, but inferior. This action would also be subject to a procedural penalty. Scenario: defender or declarer leads the queen of clubs. The contract is 4 hearts and declarer instructs dummy to ruff with the 5. However, the 9 of clubs is in dummy. Dummy says, you have to play the 9 of clubs. This is allowed. There is a requirement for dummy to ensure that they follow suit. Hopefully that was helpful and has given you some clear guidelines and examples of what dummy can and can't do. If you do any of the things dummy shouldn't, it would be great if you could stop doing them now and be a good example for other players. If you have players in your club, and I'm sure you do, that often break the rules for dummy, and the most common one is the tapping of the table or telling partner where to lead from, you could try politely informing them of the rule, and if they get a bit shitty about it, call the director. If you are not comfortable informing them about it, then you should politely advise them that you are calling the director, and once they get there, explain calmly to the director that the dummy is infringing in this way, and the director will advise them of the rules. However, in a situation where the irregularity is more egregious and potentially damaging to you, for example, playing a card before it has been called, then call the director immediately. One final word on a bit of a tangent, as this has come up a few times recently when I've been directing. It is the responsibility of the declaring side only to ensure that dummy's hand is correctly spread and has the right amount of cards. Opposition can request for the cards to be more clearly spread, but they have no obligation to point out only 12 cards are visible, or indeed only 12 cards are there. If, as a result of the cards not being clearly spread or there being one missing, that is when we get the possibility that dummy has revoked, and the revoke laws, which we will look at in the next session, will apply. Happy bridging for now, and remember, dummies should be seen and not heard.